In the world of information, some echoes are, well, they're just a lot louder than others. Today, we're going to dig into why that is through this fascinating case we're calling the amplification machine.
This quote right here, it just perfectly captures what we're investigating. It hints that what might look like a simple coincidence is actually a really carefully planned move in a global information game. Think of it as the first clue we're going to follow.
So let's dive right in with Section 1, a curious echo. This is where we first noticed something felt a little off. A pattern so precise, it just didn't seem to fit the usual chaos of a news day.
Now, take a look at this. On the left, you've got a headline from Russian state media. On the right, one from Chinese state media. They were published on the very same day, and both of them amplified the exact same quote from a European leader, a quote that kind of suggested a crack in the Western alliance. I mean, the wording is almost identical. That is the echo that set off the alarm bells.
So where did this all start? Well, as you can see, it began with what looked like just routine diplomatic chatter. You had President Macron of France and Spain's foreign minister making some pretty standard comments about U.S.-Iran ceasefire conditions. But, as we're about to see, in the world of information warfare, even the most normal-sounding statements can be turned into ammunition. Okay, so we've seen the echo. Now let's pull back the curtain and look at the machine that's actually creating it. This brings us right to Section 2, the tactic, amplification. We're going to go from asking, what happened, to understanding exactly how it was done.
Now, this isn't just biased reporting. No, it's a deliberate strategy called strategic amplification. It's a tactic where state-run media outlets act less like journalists and more like strategic curators. They carefully pick and boost statements from foreign figures to perfectly fit their own narrative.
And this slide makes the difference absolutely crystal clear. This isn't about just telling a story from a different point of view. This is the moment when words stop being just words. They become tools, even weapons, in a much, much larger conflict.
So how does this machine actually work? Let's walk through the 4 steps you see here. First, you isolate the perfect quote, one that serves your purpose. Second, you tighten the language. Polish it a bit here, snip a word there to get maximum impact. Third, and this is the really key part, you synchronize the headlines so the message pops up everywhere at once. And finally, you amplify. You hit the big red button and push it out across all your channels to create this illusion of a major breaking story.
All right, so we've covered the what and the how. That brings us to maybe the most important question of all. Why? Let's jump into Section 3, weaponizing words.
The strategic goal, as you can see, is actually pretty clever. Use a Western leader's own words to undermine Western positions, right? So imagine a French leader says something that shows a little frustration with U.S. policy. Well, that quote can be pulled out and amplified to make it seem like there's this huge fundamental crack in the NATO alliance. And the state media outlets never even have to make the argument themselves. They just hand over the microphone. And this quote from the source material just perfectly captures the subtle genius of this strategy. It's not about creating propaganda from thin air. It's about being a massive, selective megaphone, turning the volume way up on the exact words that help you, or letting everything else just fade away.
But, just spotting the tactic, that's really only the beginning. This whole incident leaves us with some much deeper, more complicated questions. And that takes us to Section 4, the lingering questions.
Okay, first, we have to consider the possibility that this wasn't an echo at all, but maybe a coordinated message. I mean, did Macron and Spain's foreign minister actually plan their statements together to send a specific signal about European policy? Because if they did, that's a completely different and pretty significant story all on its own.
Or is this more likely? That state media just cherry-picked 2 separate, maybe even unrelated comments and skillfully wove them together to look like a unified front, basically manufacturing a story of Western division where maybe none really existed. That's the art of creating a narrative out of thin air.
And this brings us to a really critical thinking tool you can use every single day. Has this same narrative popped up in independent, non-state news wires like the AP or Reuters? Did it get there on its own merit? Because if it hasn't, you really have to start asking yourself, why not?
And this leads to the ultimate chicken and egg question of modern media. Did this story get big because it was inherently newsworthy? Or did it only get traction because state-backed outlets gave it that first powerful shove into the news ecosystem? The answer to that tells you who's really setting the agenda.
So all of these questions lead us straight to our conclusion, to the big takeaway from all of this. Let's move to Section 5, reading between the lines.
So here is the crucial point. In an age of just total information overload, it's not enough to just consume the content anymore. We have to become media detectives, constantly looking at not just the what, but the where and the why behind every single story that crosses our screen.
And we'll leave you with this final, powerful question to ask yourself. The next time you see a story being pushed really heavily from all sides, don't just ask, what is this about? Ask yourself this: why was this story chosen for me? Because the answer to that question, well, that's where you'll find the real story.